Hi, this is Patricia Stepler with Your Inside Power, and I am just super excited about the topic for today. It's about the earning of money, the science of earning money, because we have to realize that money and earning money, it's just a science, just like algebra, just like any type of math. And once we learn this science, not only can we apply it to earning money, we can apply it to any area of our lives, like our relationships, our health, our time, and how we manage our time and live the lifestyle we choose. So this impacts all areas of our life because it's really just a science. You get to choose. You get to choose the kind of life that you want when you learn the process. Up until now, maybe you've allowed the outside world to control you completely. That's not unusual. That's what most people do. They live through the realm of what's going on around them instead of going inside and finding out how, as my picture says here, how to develop your own magic. You see, when you develop your magic and you learn this process, you can see how you can enjoy a fuller, bigger lifestyle. So I want you to keep this in mind, that when it comes to wealth creation, that when you look at books like Think and Grow Rich or The Science of Getting Rich, or two newer books I have on You Too Can Be Prosperous and Money Flows, Dollars Flow to Me Easily. When you look at books like that, or others on wealth creating, they rarely talk about methods to increase your wealth. What they really talk about are ways to change your thinking and change what's going on inside your mind. You see, life is all about mindset and developing awareness. And you have to have the belief that you can accomplish your goal. You have to have faith. Faith is invisible. Faith and fear are both invisible. So let's get rid of that invisible fear and develop that invisible faith and have the faith that you can do it. And then it comes down to understanding and awareness. Awareness is everything. And the more aware you become and the more you study this information, the more your world starts to open to you. There's some great books that I've read over the years, and each one of them starts to build my awareness. And I tend to study people like Neville Goddard, like Napoleon Hill, like Wallace D. Wallace. Those are some of my favorite authors, because as I read them, and I don't just read, I study the information, because you have to learn to break it down. It's new information to most of us. And you have to study it and reread it and read it slowly and go back and reread and reread. And you start to understand and develop awareness. But think about this. You see, you can become rich. It's your choice. And if you're living in a situation which you don't feel that you have that wealth and you're in that lack and limitation, it's your choice to be there. So you also have the choice to turn it around. That's the good news. But you have to change your thinking. So let's think about this. Where does money come from? Have you ever thought about that? Well, yeah, you might say, oh, the bank, or, where they, the mint, where they make the money. But where does it really come from? See, we're not taught in school how to earn money. What we're taught in school is to go to college, get a good job, and work for somebody else. That's what we're taught. How do I know that? Because I was a teacher, and we taught children how to decide that they needed to go to college and get a job. Now, I thought at the time that was a pretty crazy thing, because not everybody needs to go to college. And when you see how much money it costs to go to college, it's kind of makes you wonder, do you really need to go to college? You can have work experience that's so much more valuable. There are, things you can do out there that don't require a college education. There are a lot of technical things. So you don't have to go to college. What you need to do is to study, though, how to earn money. So that's something we're not taught in school. Most of our parents can't tell us how to earn that. My parents certainly couldn't. They couldn't teach me how to earn money because they had an education and a job. And so that's what they thought of. I'll never forget the first time I was mentored by Bob Proctor. And the first time I went to one of his consultant trainings, he said, your first goal should be to turn your yearly income into monthly income. And when he said that, I have no idea what he said after that, because in my mind, see, I was still a teacher at the time, had a job, was on a pay scale. And all I could think of when he said that was, that's crazy. I can't do that. Even if I was the superintendent of the schools, I would not have turned my monthly income in, or my annual income into monthly income. It's just not even possible. And then it kind of caught me at that moment when I'm thinking that. And it was like, slap your head, here I am in a consultant training where I've just purchased, like a franchise, to be in this business. And he's saying this should be my goal. And all I'm thinking about is how I can't do it. And that's sad. But that's where my thinking was. See, I had a lot of work to do. I had a lot of work to do on me. Not only did I have work to do on that thought process, but I had work to do on my self-image because I didn't feel worthy even of turning my annual income into a monthly income. So I had a lot of work to do, and most of us do. I didn't understand the law of attraction. I'd never even heard about that at that time. And when I started to hear about it, and people started talking about the law of attraction, I thought they were nuts until I developed the awareness. You see, awareness is everything. And what we're not aware of, we sometimes are scared of or fearful of. And we need to stop that too. So I want you to realize, sometimes people say, oh, success is a secret. No, it's not. There is no secret in success. Success is a science. You do the right things, you have the right results. It is governed by laws of the universe, just like the earth rotating. You see the sun in the morning, sun goes down in the evening. Tide comes in, tide goes out. It is all by law. Science of getting rich, science of success. It's all governed by laws. You follow the laws, you follow the process, and it must happen because that's the law. Sometimes we don't believe that, but we've got to believe it. So for you, those of you who maybe don't know me, I am a high performance mentor, and I help people to unlock the potential that they have inside of them. You see, we don't even realize how much potential we have. And we tend to think that it's just not that important, or we get stopped by the world. We start doing something and we hit a roadblock. And after you hit enough roadblocks, sometimes we get discouraged. But I help people to unlock their potential. And with that's worth everything. When you can start to build that awareness and you start to bubble to the surface of what you're capable of doing, you actually start to achieve more, you become more productive, you become more creative, and you start to move and skip, steps on the ladder as you go forward. And you start to realize you can make quantum leaps. You don't have to go step by step. That's a myth too. You can make leaps in your progress. Now, some people think what you need to do is to work hard. And if you just work harder, you'll get better results. Well, let me tell you, I work very hard. And even when I was teaching school, I worked hard. And nothing used to irritate me more than realizing how hard I was working and how maybe that teacher next to me was not working as hard, and yet they were making the same amount of money. So hard work isn't going to do it. In fact, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about, if you think hard work is the answer to success and to riches, perish the thought. Because all the time you see people working hard and they don't become rich. And then you see somebody that appears like they're not working that hard at all, and the money's just flowing to them. What's the difference? What's up here? And sometimes those really rich people don't even realize it. You know, when my son, and if you go back to my very first episode, you'll hear me talk about my son, he earned a full scholarship to college. He had no clue what he was doing, but he followed the process. He followed it to a T. He followed the natural laws of the universe, and he attracted that full scholarship to himself. But he had no clue what he was doing. He couldn't repeat it because he didn't know what he had done. You see, when you earn a lot of money, you don't necessarily know how to relate that to somebody else because you may not know what you're doing. You just unconsciously fall into it. And I guarantee you, there are things in your life that you have unconsciously followed the laws of the universe, and you've had that success. It could be in a relationship, it could be in your health, it could be in, you know, in your job position, whatever, and you fell into something and you thought you were lucky, or all the stars just aligned. No, they didn't. You followed the laws of the universe. You see, years ago, and this is another episode, I can't tell you which one, but I earned first prize in a contest when I was selling cosmetics and earned a diamond ring. And once I learned this information and became aware, I looked back and saw I followed the laws of the universe. That's how I won that ring. And you see, people that have a great success in their life, if they understand the process, they can look back and say, I did. That's exactly what I did. I followed the laws of the universe. I followed the process, and that's why I won. That's why I succeeded. That's why I earned the money. That's why I got the great relationship. That's why my health is better. They followed the process. If they can do it, you can do it. You see, that's what got me into this business. When I saw my son getting that scholarship, and even though at the time I did not understand what he had done, I knew he had caused it. I just had to figure out what he had done. And once I figured that out, I just had to help other people, because as wonderful as he is and special as he is in my life, I know that he's not unique enough to be the only one that can do it. And so if he could do it, then that meant I could do something similar. I didn't want a scholarship, but I could make my business flow, and I could earn the money that way. You can do it too. You see, once you understand and once you develop awareness, you can do anything you want to do. You can accomplish so much more. You can unleash that potential, which is what I help my clients do all the time. So you want to earn more money? You want to have more success? You have to learn the process. And it all starts with your thinking. So often we think it starts with doing this or doing that, or doing this and doing that. And so we listen to somebody and they say, oh, go and build your Facebook group. And you might hear somebody say, oh, go and get this education here. And you might hear somebody say, well, what you need to do is study this and, invest in that. The biggest investment you can ever do is investing in your mind and the awareness that you need, because building your mind is the best investment you will ever make. And then the other thing you need to do is you have to make a decision to do it. That's another thing we're not really taught. How do we make a decision? Most people just kind of let things fall, and they just sway out there in the breeze of what's happening in the world. No, you need to go after what you want. You have to decide that you want, and you have to commit to it. And you can't give up, because the only way you lose is to quit. And that's a decision itself. I'll tell you what I always tell my own children. When they've set a goal and maybe they didn't achieve the goal, or maybe they started towards a goal and then they decide to switch directions. And they would come to me and say, I don't think I want to do that anymore. And we would sit down and talk, and we'd go over, okay, well, like, if you continue, this was what's going to happen. If you discontinue, this is what's going to happen. And, I'd always say to them, I don't want you to have any regrets. So if you're doing this because you had that little stumbling block, let's keep pressing on. If you want to change because you've found something else that you'd rather do, different story. Whatever it is, I don't want you to have any regrets. I don't want you to live a life full of what if I'd have done, if I could have only. No, I'd rather you be like my son and say, wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if it actually happened? Wouldn't that be the better result? So always look at that. You have to discover the truth. The truth is what you want. The truth is not what you're seeing in front of you. So when I talk about the truth is what you see in your mind's eye. What is it that you'd love to have? That's the truth. And so you can take the idea that you have in your mind, and then you can hold it in your hands. Now, the best example I can think of this is when you have an inventor or an artist or a musician, and they get an idea. Let's just take a musician, because I can relate to that as a musician. So a musician gets this little idea of a tune in their head, right? And they start to fiddle with the tune a little, and then they start to write it down. And then next thing you know, they have this beautiful orchestral piece of music. And actually, in their minds, they can hear the violins playing and hear the bass line, and they can hear the trumpet sounding and the flutes playing their delicate part. And they hear that all inside their mind. And so they've taken what they heard up here, and now you can hear it too. So they've created this piece of music. Well, that's what you're doing. When you get an idea in your mind of something you'd like to do, it starts, and you start to build it. You start to draw out those ideas, just like the violins part, and you start to draw out that trumpet sound, and you start to draw out all these different parts that you need to accomplish that goal. And then you put action behind it. But it all starts in your mind. And so that's where the creation starts. So one thing I want you to realize is you've got one life to live. As far as we know, we only get one chance to get around here. And so we have one life to live. Why not live it the way you choose, instead of allowing the outside world to control you? Isn't it time to take control of your own life and choose to begin in the way you deserve? So consciousness is what we're aware of all day. And they say we become what we think about all day long. What do you think about? Now, see, you can start to be really confused and confuse the universe when you in your, let's say, your conscious mind, you have the ability to achieve this big goal, this big monetary goal that you have for the year. And you've broken it down into, what do I need to do, in this quarter, and what do I need to do this month, this week, and this today. And you've broken it all down. And so consciously, you can accomplish the goal. But subconsciously, or in your heart, you just don't feel it's possible. Why do I think I can do that? Who am I to think that I can have such a big accomplishment in my life? And so those are conflicting ideas. And now you're just confusing the universe. You're in your mind saying one thing, and your heart you're saying another, and that's just confusion. So you have to get that belief and that faith and that focus in the same direction. And you have to keep imprinting that idea in your mind over and over and over again until your subconscious or your heart starts to feel it. Because once you get those two working together, you see the subconscious or the feeling part of your mind, that's what puts your body into action. So as long as that feeling is stronger than this idea of what you want, the action's going to be that you don't do the right things, or don't do the right things with the right attitude, or, people can pick up. Do you realize people can pick up your vibration? So everything you have is energy. Everything you're operating is a vibration. You can feel my vibration right now. Now, if I was talking like this, would you think that I was very excited about anything I was saying? No, because you pick up on that vibration. You pick up on people's vibration, how they're really feeling. This is how you can tell when somebody's not feeling good, or when something's not right with somebody, you can pick up on it. You're feeling their vibration they're sending out to you. So you have to realize that you too send out those vibrations. So if in your head you want one thing, but in your heart it's saying another, that vibration in your heart is what's turning into action. And the action's not going to be as productive. So you have to realize that you have to get those two working together. So working harder, working longer is not necessarily what you need to do. That doesn't mean it's not what you need to do. It's just not necessarily going to bring you the success you want. When I first started really committing to my business, and that's just another story, but when I really started committing to my business, I worked a lot of hours. And I worked it because I was excited, and it didn't feel like work because it was the energy I had behind it. And prior to that, I worked a lot of hours too, not quite in the same attitude, not quite as many hours. So I actually worked more hours when I got really committed than I did prior to that, because I was feeling it. And it wasn't work. It was fun because I knew where I was headed, and I knew how I was going to get there, and I knew which pieces to pull together. And it makes such a difference when you know that. So we consciously have to do the things we need to do. And you can't give what you do not have. So this is one thing I realized early on. As I said, I had to build my self-image. My self-image was not where it needed to be in order to accomplish my goal. You see, you have to become the person first. You have to be the person first before you're going to have that accomplishment in your life. So I couldn't give that to somebody else until I got it myself. And that's something you have to realize. You cannot give what you do not have. I cannot tell you about something if I do not have it. If I didn't have a good attitude, how can I show you what a good attitude is? How can I show you what a good vibration looks like if I didn't have it myself? So you really have to get to that point. But keep in mind, when you are reaching towards a goal and you're moving towards a goal and you're putting the actions behind that goal is actually moving towards you. See, there's all this cause and effect, action, reaction. And so when you put an action out there, there is an equal opposite reaction towards you. So even when you don't see the results happening, you know it's happening, it's coming. And sometimes you just have to keep calling that money and calling that result. You see, the universe and these ideas like to be called. And Napoleon Hill talks about that, calling the money. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind. So what do your results, what are they telling you? Because the results always tell what's going on inside of you. If you're not getting the results that you want, it's time to look inside. And this is where I really help people. So in my business, I do work primarily with mindset, because mindset is everything. Your mind controls everything in your life. We don't realize how programmed our minds are. Just like the story I told you about, turning my yearly income into monthly income, and where I was really focused on, that was a habitual pattern in my subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind's controlling your actions. I couldn't take an action because I didn't believe in that statement. I didn't believe I could turn my yearly income into monthly income because I didn't believe that was possible at the time. So you have to realize that these actions are controlled by you. So this is what I help people do. I help them to shift their thinking, because those thought patterns have been programmed into your mind since you were a very small child. And if you're ever going to shift your results, you're going to have to shift those habitual thought patterns. So that's what my clients learn to do. They learn to shift those patterns. Then those who are in business for themselves, I sometimes create like different packages for people, but those people that are in business for themselves, if lead generation is your thing, I'm going to show you the most fabulous lead generation program I've ever seen in my life. And it's the one that I'm currently using and getting absolute fabulous results from. So, and it's so simple, it's so easy, and the results are just phenomenal. So I will show you that lead generation. Lead generation is not your thing, and that's not good for you. We'll find another avenue to increase your business. So that's what I help people do, to shift their thinking, to get a good lead generation, to develop their minds, to develop their business, and to get on with the lifestyle that they want to live. Because you have to realize that money is just an object. Money does not control you. You control the money. And you have to realize you're the master, the money's the servant, not the other way around. There's nothing wrong with earning a lot of money. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be wealthy. So get that one right out of your mind. That's a story that you have been told. That's a story that somebody else wanted to embed in you. And it's a story that maybe it's been passed down from generation to generation to you. So let's get that one right out of your mind now. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be wealthy. So if you can see it in your mind, you can have it in front of you, just like an inventor, just like an artist painting a picture, just like a musician. So where and how your results happen all depend on you and your thinking. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you and love to share with you my business and the different things I'm doing right now to help others to move forward in their life and in their business. So just reach out to me, Facebook, LinkedIn, you'll find me, Patricia Stepler. You'll see me at Patty Stepler, and I'd love to chat with you sometime. So until then, I want you to be the magic in your dream, because you are in control of you.